Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, comics we want to read, and everything in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. This week, John has been waiting for this week for so long.
I don't know about waiting, but
So long. Yeah. That was John's interpretation of the Star Wars theme song.
Yeah, something like that.
Because we are doing the original Marvel graphic novel of, well, it's the original 6 issues of the first Marvel Star Wars series, which came out before, or actually was written before A New Hope came out in theaters in 1977. So, had you heard of this series first?
I had heard of the series, and I knew that it was written before, and I wondered as a kid, like, because now if I saw that something came out before the movie and it was the story of the movie, I would be like, I'm not reading that.
Right.
But like I wonder as
it all didn't come out before. The first issue
one,
came
yeah.
out, but it was all written before the movie came out.
That's true.
So technically, you would have read this, gone and see the movie to figure out everything. Then come back and bought the next 5 issues.
That's true.
So, but yes, it does spoil the fucking movie if you've never seen it and you pick it up in issue form. But remember, back then they didn't have trades. You would have had to go back and find the issues.
It's true, and wait, yeah.
So, I should say this is written by Roy Thomas, who's, does a lot of Conan and stuff from back then in the 70s. And then is drawn by one of my favorite artists, Howard Chaykin. And I think it's one of his first big projects ever. And you could still see Chaykin in there for sure.
Especially in the first couple.
Yeah, the first couple for sure. But yeah, I guess, okay, for all you, I don't know, people who've been under a rock for 40 years, John, do you want to give the brief summary of what Star Wars A New Hope is about?
We should start before that. A long time ago in a galaxy far away. Yes, there is an evil empire that is trying to put its clutches over the entire galaxy. And there's a small band of rebels who are trying to fight that oppression and win and destroy the empire. And so as they grow further and further and pull more systems in, more people fall into the fold of the battles, and ends up running into Luke Skywalker. He is a
farm boy
and a moisture farm.
As you do, you farm moisture.
Well, it's a 2-sun planet.
Sure,
you get it. It's really hot.
Sure.
So yeah, he's on a desert planet, and he gets pulled into this epic battle because of a couple of droids that happen to escape on a planet, and then this craziness ensues.
He just gets pulled into this mission. Also, I think especially in this comic, they don't have this as much in the movie. In this comic, they make Luke Skywalker an asshole. He's very much like a petulant child the whole time, which is funny. They use dialogue from the movie, but the way that they draw him and the way that his expressions are way more like, I'm mad now or whatever, rather than...
Yeah, he's whiny. He definitely came off as a little more angry, temper tantrum in this. Because, in the movies, he's just whiny. But yeah, he came off a little... Yeah,
because in the movie, it's the way that he's acted, right? He's played as I'm a kid, but I'm not a whiny brat. In this, he came off more as a whiny brat.
Yeah, he gets pulled into this by chance, it would seem, but actually it's more of a grand scheme of things because of how he's going to be connected.
The Force,
obviously.
Because of the Force.
Yes, because of the Force. The will of the Force.
The cosmic forces, they say one time in this book.
I know. There was some interesting liberties with the Forces and
what it is.
Jedi and Sith.
Yes, it was fantastic. So yeah.
So originally, this comic was part of official Star Wars canon and everything too, until Disney bought it. Basically, this was also part of what the Star Wars story was, even though they're it's pretty close to the first movie.
It's pretty close, yeah.
But even with some of the things they added, that was all officially part of Star Wars canon too. But now it's not. It's part of the legends.
Of course. So I will say, full disclosure, I do not like Star Wars or Star Trek. Okay,
I
do not prefer
it,
Star Wars. I do not prefer any of the Star movies or whatever, the Treks or the Wars or any of that stuff. So
the Troopers.
I'll take Starship Troopers over either of these. So, but yeah, these are not my favorite kind of sci-fi stuff. I of course know them and pretty much have watched them all like 1,000 times. So I know enough about them to, when I read this, I was like, I'm having a lot of fun because I don't remember everything about A New Hope because that's probably the one I watched the least. But this just is, it's got the pace of a comic. It's got the real like, and we're moving along, like we got 18 pages per issue because this was like, I think when Marvel was trying to save money on shit. So they're like, it's 18 pages, not 22 or 24, like, so the story moves at a really good pace, and they did a really good job, I think, of condensing this into 6 issues from a movie that's 2 hours long or whatever. You know? So, and then John, of course, is the biggest Star Wars person. I was going to say that I know, but Adam is close too. I don't know. I don't know who's bigger. But they're both giant Star Wars nerds. But
true. I've been a pretty big Star Wars fan since I was like 3.
John's probably going to take the lead on a lot of this stuff, but I will throw in my comic book knowledge of this as much as I can. So the reason why I picked this, because John had said, "Oh, do you want to do this other one that's kind of an adaptation from Lucas's original script?" And I was like, "What about these 6 issues?" One, I love Howard Chaykin, and I kind of wanted to introduce him to the podcast. And 2, apparently when they drew this, they had no idea what a lot of the stuff was going to be. They didn't know who the actors were yet. So when they drew Luke Skywalker in the first issue, they gave him a big chin, and he looks,
he looks like He-Man.
He looks like He-Man, basically. He's got the Prince Valiant haircut and everything. And then as the issues go further, I think maybe as they finally figured out who they're going to cast, you can see the faces kind of, it's still Howard Chaykin's artwork, but he's trying to mold it into look like Luke Skywalker's face from the movie. So he's doing his best, but it's hard to change that in 6 issues. So, and then also during this, you have like colorists on almost every book changes. So you got very inconsistent on like, okay, sometimes Han Solo has black hair. And sometimes Han Solo has brown hair. And sometimes Luke Skywalker has brown eyes. And sometimes Luke Skywalker has blue eyes. So that they could have definitely not done. That's on them, as far as a fuck up or whatever.
Yeah, basically, until the last issue, there's a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of like very odd choices for some of the art, the way they did it. But the last one, it's like streamlined. It's like,
I think by then they knew who was going to be cast, and they were like, okay, we know this stuff. Chewbacca, it has the weirdest character designs I've ever seen for a character that is so established now in our minds. For him to not only does he look crazy, he's got a big black nose like a dog. He looks more like John Candy in Spaceballs than he does Chewbacca from the movie, from Star Wars. And so, and the other thing that I love is they did not know what Chewbacca was going to sound like. So all of his sounds are like gork,
grunk,
gronk, and it's like, what the hell is that? Like, that's not, like it's not what it sounds like, So it's very funny when he's talking, or even like R2, where it's like beep boop bop bop bleed or whatever, and you're like, what is that? Like, I don't know. They could have figured out something better if they actually knew what R2 was going to sound like when they did the comic, but they didn't know that. So yeah, you could definitely tell the actors that they knew who was cast. Like, they knew who Biggs was, and they actually gave Biggs kind of a story arc in this too, which isn't in the movie.
No, it's actually a lot of it is in deleted scenes.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, but and that because that was part of the script, but then that was cut as obviously they went to.
Okay, they introduced this whole like Biggs is Luke's best friend from Tatooine. Is it Tatooine? What is the?
Yeah, Tatooine.
Okay, from Tatooine when I'm gonna reference John on a lot of these names of places and people because I don't know all of them. But so Biggs and Luke were best friends on Tatooine, and then so in the first issue they're like a whole like, "Hey Biggs, you're back from the academy, and I'm gonna run away from the Empire and join the rebels and all this stuff." And then in the last issue, he actually gets to fly with Biggs just like in the movie. But they definitely knew who that actor was because I looked him up because I'm like, I wonder what Biggs looks like in the movie, and he looks exactly like the actor. And then the same with they knew Alec, whatever his name, Alec Guinness was gonna. John just gave me a face like, how dare you? Whatever. Alec Guinness was gonna be Obi-Wan because they like did all the detail in his face when they revealed him. So, yeah, you want to bring up like the stuff that you thought was fun first or whatever?
Yeah, he looked good. I mean, the whole first issue basically is like the space the crawl, and then the space battle above, where the ships look pretty good. They're pretty similar. Laser blast colors are different.
This is what I noticed.
But
this is what I noticed. The biggest thing about the ships is they must have given them a reference photo of a model from one angle, or maybe like 3 angles, but not the bottom or something. Because like the Millennium Falcon, it's got all this stuff on the all over it, and then on the bottom it's flat,
it's smooth
as like until the last issue. Then in the last issue, I noticed they started throwing in stuff underneath. But yeah, for most of this stuff, like the Star Destroyers and other stuff, was all smooth on the bottom, or they didn't know what it was supposed to look like because they only got reference photos from the top and the sides or something. So it was kind of interesting to see that. I was like, what the fuck? Like, why would they do that? And I'm like, oh, they must have only had certain reference photos, and then like they had Leia's hair and stuff, but she did not look like Carrie Fisher.
She did not look like Carrie Fisher
until, I mean, there was one panel, maybe in like issue 5, where I was like, that kind of looks like Carrie Fisher. Other than that, most of it did not look like Carrie Fisher. And then Han Solo never looked like Harrison Ford. The most he did was at the end, but I don't know when Harrison Ford was cast. But like we said, half the issues he has black hair, and half of it he has brown hair, and he's definitely the same character though, which is like they wrote him well. I thought.
Yeah, no, there wasn't. It felt very true. The first one is the space battle and the droids escaping to the planet, and it moves really fast. That's one thing about at least the first 3 movies is George Lucas writing these movies.
George Lucas's wife writing these movies.
Yeah. they're almost written in real time. So it's like, oh man, Death Star's coming in 30 minutes, and then the movie it's 30 minutes later. Oh, here's the Death Star. Like everything kind of comes along exactly in sequence, and it translated well for the comic too, because it's like this to this, like everything moved together real well.
Yeah.
So the droids get there, and then they get picked up by the Jawas real fast, and then they get sold to.
Did you like the Jawas? Whatever that.
The sandcrawler.
Their sandcrawler.
Yeah.
Looked like they were given a model that wasn't quite done yet. And
yeah.
like, we don't know. It's going to be some sort of trapezoidal wedge shape, maybe, but like not quite as it in the movies. It's like for sure this is a trapezoid wedge kind of looking thing.
But. Well, so one thing with a lot of the Star Wars designs is the artist Ralph McQuarrie. He did pretty much all the original designs for it, and some things transitioned into the movie almost identical, and some things were they changed, smoothed out, or added or took away from it. And I looking at some of these, like the Star Destroyers in this, they look much similar to his designs than what ended up finalized in the movie. So right. That's why I figured where they got.
Yeah, I mean they were given a packet of information, like this is what we're thinking. Yeah,
here you go.
Like I mean, I listened to interviews where Howard Chaykin was talking about this, and not only. Because like he's a really good artist, you can see all the detail when he's detailing stuff. So it's you can see like all the backgrounds with all the little space, computers and shit in the background. You're like, oh, look, he did a really good job on all that. And then the faces will come up and be like, that doesn't look anything like Han Solo or like Chewie. You're like, what the fuck was Howard thinking? But I mean, he's got to work with what he was given, And like when you're talking about a made up world with Chewbacca's in it, and you're like, I don't know what this bullshit is. I write noir, comics, so I'm gonna draw Luke with a big chin and Chewie's. I guess that's a fucking dog. Whatever, just it's a big dog. We'll go with that, So, yeah, they worked with what they had, but yeah, so.
So droids get sold to Luke and Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, And so Luke's cleaning him up, and while that's happening, the whole like Darth Vader comes aboard the ship. It's like, where are the plans? He doesn't force choke. He literally breaks a guy's neck in his hands.
Yes.
And then one line I really liked is, so they're like hunting the ship for Leia, and when the stormtroopers go to find her, and just like in the movie, they're like, set weapons to stun, and then Leia doesn't have a line. She just shoots one of them. And in this comic, she's like, that's fine. I set mine to kill.
Yeah.
Given the little extra dialogue sometimes was quite funny.
Yes, and I was gonna say, like, I like, because in the comic they can add little thought bubbles and stuff, so it gave the characters a little bit more like pizzazz than.
As we get along, there's actually one part I like better in the comic than the movie. Anyway, so they capture Leia, and then Luke's cleaning off the droids down back on Tatooine, and then the "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope" message comes up. Only difference is she just looked like just a miniature midget version of Leia instead of like a hologram.
Yeah, they're like, we don't know what this
looks like.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And then so R2, same kind of thing. R2's like, I'll play it if you take my restraining bolt off. So he takes it off, and he's like, I don't know where the message is. And so, Luke's like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go have dinner. You guys stay here, and we'll figure this out later. And obviously, Luke Skywalker or R2 runs off. He's like, oh, okay, we gotta go find him. So Luke and C-3PO go off to find him. The Sand People come and scare him, and it was the same kind of thing. They don't know what the Sand People sound like or what their weapons look like.
Whatever.
he had like some kind of like axe looking thing.
It didn't look like an axe though. They called it like a sand axe or whatever, but it was like, it looked like half of a mic stand that was bent on the bottom, and it had a spike on one side, and then it had like, I guess you'd call it an axe, but it was just like a piece of metal that was thin and, kind of wedge shaped on the top. But
it was different, but it was funny. Wasn't the gaffy stick. No. And then that's like the end of the first one. It's like, oh man, is Luke gonna get like bashed in the head from the sand people?
Yeah.
What
will happen? Find out next time.
Oh, actually, I forgot. This is the first one. Was one of my favorite parts. Is it shows them on the Death Star talking. Like after they capture Leia, they get to the Death Star, and so it's all the governors talking about like, this is the ultimate power, we should use it. And Grand Moff Tarkin comes in the room with Vader, and he's like, yeah, we will. And because they're basically the remnants of the old Republic and the Senate, and anything that was like holding back the Empire from becoming the ultimate power is gone. The Emperor took care of that, so we have control of like our areas, and we just all report back to him. And they're like, only thing we have to worry about is finding the plans to the Death Star that were stolen, and hopefully they'll recover the droids or whatever. They have the princess, so they'll figure out where the base is.
Oh, they'll figure it out.
And Darth Vader's like, yeah, we just have to be careful about it and find it. And they're like, oh, the one guy is like, calm down, Lord Vader. Like, you using the Force hasn't helped you find the stolen dad tapes or whatever. And I love that Darth Vader's just calmly listening, and he like force calls a cup of coffee over to his hand. And you're like, how is he going to drink that? And you just see the little steam rising up. I guess it's going to...
Yeah, he's going to pour it through his mouth.
Yeah, through his little
vent or whatever.
in the front. And then he goes the choke. Then he force chokes the guy. So that's the first one. Then the next couple just kind of goes through the main part of the story.
Right.
The Luke's... They go down, and there's stormtroopers trying to find the droids, and then they kill Uncle Owen and Beru. And Luke did have a little more emotion in this. He was like, "No."
Yes, they did a really good job of like, if you're gonna draw a comic book character saying, seeing his parents, but his adopted parents die, his uncle and aunt, like, he's gonna be like, wow, like, he's yelling it out in this.
Yeah. Oh, and Obi-Wan saves Luke from the Sand People, because that's the big thing you said, like the reveal, and it looks like Alec Guinness. They were like, oh, they know who's playing that role.
Yeah, definitely. So that's what it even said. That I looked up like the history on it. It said, oh, the only reason why Stanley was like, yeah, we'll do it, is because they were like, oh, Alec Guinness is in this.
They're like, oh, okay, well,
okay, I guess we'll do it if that guy's in it or whatever. It's like, which is funny when you hear about Alec Guinness. When he was proposed this,
like,
I don't know what this bullshit is.
This sounds stupid.
Yeah. It stinks. I don't like it. Yeah. So So yeah, it's the main story for the most part. Anything you want to hit in those issues?
Now I like the light. They didn't know about lightsabers, so the color of lightsabers was like pink or red.
Yes, when Alec or when Obi-Wan gives or shows Luke his dad's lightsaber, it also seemed like they don't know anything obviously about what's going to happen in the future because they have Leia kiss Luke like very passionately
twice. Like that's one thing she does in the movie. It's a little peck before they do the jump.
No, this is like on the mouth.
No, this is like, oh man, we might get it on later if you come back safe.
Yeah, in a Marvel way though.
Yeah,
very for kids Marvel way of getting it on, and then yeah, like they did not know that obviously Darth Vader was Luke's father because spoilers. Anybody who heard that, I'm sorry if you didn't know. But Darth Vader is Luke's father, and
I'm sorry. 40 years.
Yeah.
if we have to do spoilers,
that's on
for
you.
A 40-year-old movie.
That's on you. Also, every one of our podcasts is a spoiler podcast. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was one line I think towards the end where someone was like, "Oh, I knew your dad. He was a great guy," and I'm like, how the fuck do you know Darth Vader?
That's one of the things that was edited out from the movie because that was an actual scene. They filmed it and everything too.
Oh, really? Okay.
But yeah, that was cut out because they didn't quite have everything worked out. They basically retconned it. George Lucas retconned it before
it even came out.
Oh,
okay. So he was probably writing the second one or coming up with more ideas. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool?
Yeah.
If Darth Vader was Luke's father, and then he's like, "Oh shit, I got to check that."
The last comic cover even has Darth Vader on the cover, being like, "I will get you, Luke Skywalker," and it's like he would definitely know, obviously. Then,
yeah, yes, exactly.
His name.
Yeah, it's fun reading these and seeing what they knew, what they didn't know. Like we were saying, the lightsabers. We'll go through this. This is a whole thing with the lightsabers. So it comes out. Like he's showing Luke Anakin's lightsaber, and it is red.
Yes,
which is weird. And then he does the same thing with the training droid, and the training droid instead of being all smooth and stuff is like this weird.
It looks
like a mine, like an ocean mine, a sea mine.
I thought a mine or like a virus,
yes.
They show him
when they show COVID, and it's like here's a picture of COVID. It looked like that. It has little points that have suckers almost at the ends of them or whatever that flare out. It looked like that, so it was funny to see that. And then he's doing same thing where it's like, Luke, use the Force to train with this thing or whatever. All that's the same, but the lightsabers was funny, and the best thing that happened in the lightsabers was the Obi-Wan fight with Darth Vader.
So when they go to fight in there in the Death Star, and it doesn't show him going to take down the tractor beam. He just does it. I thought that was interesting. They didn't hash that out like they do. So yeah, they're going to fight, and then when Darth Vader does the Obi-Wan's strike me down and I'll become more powerful, and then Darth Vader goes to strike him down, instead of just disappearing in the movie, he looks like he gets electrocuted.
Yeah, there's just one panel of Obi-Wan looking like he's turning into either the end scene of 2001: A Space Odyssey colors and everything. He's becoming part of the electrical field or something. They don't know what he's doing.
But. It made me think of Gremlins, the Gremlins 2, the electric gremlin.
Yeah. It was they don't know anything about these.
Yeah. So then all of his stuff falls in the movie, and then. So Darth Vader in the movie, he goes to step on it. He in this one he goes to lift it up, but he lifts it up with the tip of his lightsaber. They have no idea how the lightsabers work at all.
Yeah, instead of it being this is a plasma ray that will kill anything that touches it or burn through or whatever. It's a stick that glows. It's actually the ones you buy at Walmart or whatever, or even the expensive ones that just light up, and they're just a tube with a light in it. You could pick stuff up with those. So that's what they thought it was, something like that. So it was just funny how they don't know how any of the mechanics work, all that kind of stuff. I also like the in the movie when they go down the trash chute to escape when they're saving Leia and everybody. They go down the trash chute, and in the movie the eyeballs pop up and everything, and I thought that was really scary when I was a kid in the movie. And then in this, there's like tentacles that come and then never thought of again. It goes away, and then they never have an issue with it.
Nope.
It was like, all right. And then the funny thing was they don't have an issue while they're in the garbage, and then the walls close in on them. They figure that out. They get out somehow. They don't really show how. And then as they're already in the hallway, you see Luke turn around, and he used a blaster a lot more in this than he does in the movie. Every shot of him on the covers and stuff is him with a blaster. And maybe also a lightsaber.
Yeah, sometimes both.
Yeah, he's wielding both. But and he's just him shooting the little tentacles that are coming after him still from the trash chute. I'm like, the fuck? Like, what is this thing? So, yeah, that was like issue 2 and 3 or that, like where they're saving the princess from the
Yeah.
I guess, is she on the Death Star or is she on?
Yeah, she's on the Death Star. I will say I did like the hyperspace when they first are going to like Alderaan to send to bring the tapes or whatever, and then they end up on the Death Star. I liked the hyperspace because it was like a rainbow like coloring of light beams that come in through space. It was cool looking. I thought it was, the things that they didn't know that they took liberties on that were cool were very cool. Like,
right, they just drew it kind of like they would have in a comic, like just like any property. Like hyperspace, sure,
whatever that is.
Is this Guardians of the Galaxy? Whatever, it's all the same. So, yeah. Then issue 4. And it's funny, like like you said, as the issues go on, the characters slowly start to morph into what the actors kind of look like. So you see Howard Chaykin's chins, the way that he's drawing the chins on the men, start to soften a bit, and Leia's face, like I said, in one panel in issue 5, I think, actually looks like Carrie Fisher. And then most of them, that was like an extreme close-up where it actually looked like her.
Yeah.
Then the rest of it is kind of her far away, so it doesn't look like her that much, but it's better than it was in issue 1.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, you know what? There's one thing I want to mention. A little bit back when they were on Tatooine and Han first goes to the Millennium Falcon before Luke and Obi-Wan come to the docking bay. And it's a deleted scene, which is now canon scene in the movies of Han meeting Jabba the Hutt for the.
Is that when they added the
first time
the computer Jabba?
Yeah, there's like the when he steps on his tail or whatever. Stupid scene.
It is a dumb scene, George Lucas.
Well, the mystique of Jabba the Hutt having it, like they just talk about it a couple times, makes a way better payoff.
Also, how's that fat fucking slug gonna slug through town?
He's a slug. He's gonna slug.
Slide through doorways and stuff.
Yeah,
these slugs gonna slug. Get the fuck out of here.
Well, so in the movie, they didn't know he was gonna be a slug yet, obviously too, and they had filmed that scene, but they just did it with like a really big fat guy. And so in this, they didn't even know. They just knew that scene was there, but they didn't even know what he looked like.
Yeah.
So they luckily they picked at least a random background actual Star Wars character. But the meeting with him, he looks like some kind of like half walrus, half like tarsier looking humanoid creature to be Jabba.
I don't know what's a tarsier.
Oh, it's like a really tiny monkey, but they have these tufts of fur that come out like yes. the creature in the thing.
Okay,
that's what it made me think of.
Yes, yeah. It was funny when I'm reading. I was like, "Is this supposed to be Jabba the Hutt? Who the fuck is this?
Who is this?"
Yeah, and I was like, and I also I didn't remember this scene because I refused to watch the updated in quotation marks versions.
The special editions.
Yeah, the special
editions. For a reason.
Yeah, because they have 1997 computer graphics in them. Yeah, so I've only seen this from the original, like when I was a kid.
So you agreed with the comics Han shot first too. There was no Greedo shooting.
No, Greedo shot first, or he had his gun out.
He had his gun out, but he doesn't shoot. And Han just and that was a cool panel too. He just gets blasted away.
I was trying to remember when I read that, who was supposed to shoot first, or who? What's the argument here? I can't remember, but yeah, Greedo's got his gun out already, and Han then pulls out his gun and shoots. Which I'm like, what? Greedo have the safety on or some shit?
Basically, well, he does it from under the table, so he doesn't see. Really
but he actually pulls it out.
Yeah,
in the comic, he pulls it out, and Greedo's just like and then maybe he tried to pull the trigger and nothing happened.
I don't know. But anyway, so back to where we are is so they're they escape the Death Star and they're fighting the TIE fighters. I like the TIE fighter pilots, all of them kind of had different looking helmets, nothing was really streamlined.
Yeah.
They one or two of them kind of look like cone heads.
Yes.
Really
They just look like Darth Vader's babies. Because also they didn't have like I said, I think for Darth Vader they might have had like 1 or 2 character sketches of like, here's the front, here's the side, here's the back, but he only has a cape or whatever. So a lot of whenever they did a shot of him walking, they're like, we don't know what he looks kind of like when he walks, so this is gonna look weird. You can't really tell. He always kind of looks different in every camera angle. Either his helmet is longer or more squat or more like a actual stormtrooper from like
Oh yeah,
World War II or whatever. And like they just weren't sure what his design looked like. Sometimes his eyeballs are red, sometimes they're black.
Oh yeah, the coloring of the
lenses or whatever. Where his eye lenses are.
They keep changing colors.
Yeah, so I'm like, are they red or are they black, guys?
Sometimes they were clear. They just look like glasses.
Yes. I assume that was reflection though, like just like light reflection.
That's true.
But when it's red, I'm like, well, for sure they're not red, guys. Like,
well, actually,
oh,
there. Yeah. So,
excuse me.
If I had glasses, I would be pushing them on
actually,
right now.
it is.
So actually, in a New Hope, he does have red. They changed this later in the Empire, but the suit, Darth Vader's suit, actually goes through several changes that you don't really, unless you're like really paying attention, you would notice. But his eye lenses are actually red. They highlight that more in like the Clone Wars cartoons and or the Rebels cartoons. Pardon me. Anyway,
right.
but
this was his metal.
That's neither
face.
here nor there.
Whatever. Then they got it right. I was wrong. Okay.
But yeah, so now they're on. They go to Yavin and they have Princess Leia and they have the Death Star plans. And I love that they're going over the plans, and Han and Chewie are like gonna get out of there with their money. Be like, hold on, he's like, this old coot's gonna tell us the plan. We'll at least know about this first. And they tell him how to knock it out, and it's like, yeah, okay, you go in through the trench and you blow it up. Same thing as in the movie.
Yeah, just like the movie.
And the Death Star is going to come. And it's funny, they drew the Death Star upside down a lot of the time.
Yeah, they don't know, yeah.
It's like, whatever.
Also, like, it has, like, pew, pew, like, it shoots a lot of little lasers out of it. I'm like, the fuck is that? Like, not in the main ending scene, because in the main ending attack, yeah, it has turrets and stuff that are shooting at them. But also,
yeah. Oh, like the cover, yeah. It shows them like shooting down to the planet.
Yes.
But like tiny lasers from all around.
Not the main one big laser. So it's like they did not know what the Death Star was fully, and what it was capable of. And like you said, it was upside down half the time. I mean, in space, is there an upside down though, John?
Yeah. I mean, it's all relative.
It's a round ball, so in space, it doesn't matter. Right?
And to be fair, they showed it in upside down in Rogue One. It was cool looking. I get it.
They knew exactly what they were doing at Marvel in 1977.
They did. Marvel was ahead of their time. What they're trying to say. But yeah, so anyway, so then they're like, okay, we're gonna go attack it. So everybody gets in their ships, the X-wings and Y-wings and stuff. And yeah, there's that scene where he's like, oh yeah, hey, hope you're gonna be a good pilot. And Biggs is like, yeah, I vouch for him. He's my best bud. And then the one guy's like, yeah, I knew your dad back when I was younger. And
the dude's like 30. So this was like, he knew Anakin when Anakin was like, a full Jedi and, all this shit. Like what?
Great guy.
Yeah.
Good pilot.
I remember when he murdered that room of children. It was awesome.
But anyway, yeah, so they go up to the Death Star and they go to they're gonna blow it up, and so they're flying along and they're like, oh, we can't shoot them with our lasers. They're avoiding the Darth Vader's. All right, send out the TIE fighters, and he's like, I'll go and I'll deal with this myself. And I like Darth Vader has like a moment. He has like both of his hands up, like those pesky rebels,
those damn rebels.
So yeah, they're all flying around, and then and supposedly Han, went off because he has to pay off his debt to.
Yeah, he's like, that's great, you guys are rebels, but I have money now, and I just need to pay off Jabba.
Yeah, so they're flying, and they there's actually one thing that was different about this. This is the scenes I was talking about that I kind of liked a little more. One of them, they only actually had one trench run with Luke. Like they didn't have a previous one. The guy who was going to do it before just dies. So that's different. But
yeah, that was like the squadron commander.
Yeah,
came in and tried to do it on his own, but he missed.
Yeah, and there was blue leader, not red. No, they weren't. They were blue squadron.
Yeah, the blue squadron. Blue squadron.
But the one scene, because of the extra,
Porkins still dies.
Yeah,
and they even say, "You
Piggy,
poor Piggy, my best friend." I'm like, what the fuck? You don't call the guy that just blew up Piggy.
But so in the movie there and the comic, the scene where Luke's first flying in and like trying to draw the guns away off the top, and so he's like shooting the Death Star, just like the side of it, and he realizes he like can't pull up quite fast enough, so he like flies through the like little explosions and whatnot. In the movie, it's just like hold your breath and like okay, it's over. And in this, I like the way that they wrote it. He was like, his heart went to his like chest or whatever, and he like there was this like 3 or 4 panels of like longer explanation of like, how he was feeling. It was just cool. I like that.
Yeah, well, and you can do that because it's all like inner dialogue or inner thoughts and stuff. And he's like, I just got a little crispy. That's all. Like a little well done on the underside of my X-wing. It's pretty much the same exact story from this whole point where it's like he's just going. He's getting taken out. Everybody's getting taken out by Darth Vader and the TIE fighters when they're in the trench, and then Millennium Falcon shows up and it's like, you son of a bitch. And then,
and this is one of the best lines in it too. So like they shoot and they're like, what? And then Darth Vader, as he gets to explode and starts rolling out into space, he says, by the immortal lords of the Sith.
Yes. Yes.
So they have no idea.
They don't know what these things are. And they, like we said before, they also called like the Force the Cosmic Force, and they just didn't know exactly what it was, and they're like, it's a thing. But yeah, in this, Luke uses the Force.
Ben only like talks to him like once in that though. But it's like he's like, Luke, and he's like, Ben, is that you? And then he turns off his stuff and it's like, okay. He's like, I remembered back to my training with Obi-Wan with the remote droid.
Right.
And then he does it, and then he's like, and then Ben's like, yeah, you did it. The Force will be with you. So that was a little different too, but it was cool.
The way that they show the exhaust port in the movie is way smaller than the one in the comic book.
Oh yeah, this is.
I was like, hold on a second. In the movie, it's like literally the size of 2 basketballs or whatever, and they have to get these torpedoes inside those 2 basketballs or whatever. Yeah. Like this is, I don't know, a door that's 8 feet wide and another door that's 8 feet wide and tall, and they just can shoot inside that.
It looks like they could have flown a small ship in there.
Yeah, they definitely could have parked a whole fucking X-wing in it, dude. Yeah. It did not look as challenging. And that was a bit confusing. If I did not know the story of Star Wars, like if I hadn't seen the movie and I read this, I'd be like, what happened there? Because he's like, I shot the thing, and then you just see like a line going into a square. I mean, it's detailed, but it's like, okay, a fire line going into a spaceship square.
Yeah.
And then, that did it. I'm out. It's like, okay, what happened? Because, they don't really explain it too well, or like they don't go in depth of explaining what does the exhaust port look like in this this comic. So they just say it's a small thing, and then when they show it, it doesn't look that small on the page or whatever. So
the explosion page is really good. That was really pretty, actually.
Yeah, they did a good job on all that. Then the page that looks the most like the movie characters, like what the actors look like, was the little epilogue, which is the medal scene at the end of A New Hope, and pretty much everybody looked on character at that point.
And they explain for people that were freaking out before that Chewbacca actually does get a medal too. This is a funny little thing too. Was like Luke gets his medal, or Han gets his medal, then Luke gets his medal, and Chewbacca will get a medal too, but he'll have to put it on himself because space princesses aren't that tall.
Oh, is that what it said?
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, and that's the thing, and I stopped reading it. I didn't read all the dialogue or all the thought balloons or whatever.
It was cute. They were like, Chewbacca gets one too. Y'all.
It'd be funny if they gave him a dog collar. They're like, and here's your collar.
You earned your collar.
Yeah. You got your rabies tag. But yeah, it was fun. I don't know about you, but I liked this actually a lot. Like it read fast. They did a real good job of condensing the movie into this, and I enjoyed it. So what did you, as a Star Wars fan, think about the comic?
So like you said, the story was nearly identical. Some of it was, they took their liberties because they didn't know, but overall, it was good. I liked it. The art was throwing me off at first because it was so inconsistent.
Right.
But then the more
and I would say it's not the art. I mean, the art was him not knowing what was supposed to be looking like what.
Yeah.
But that's not his fault. He's a good artist.
Yeah.
But the colorist should have been on point as far as keeping it consistent throughout.
That's true, because even some of the, like, Obi-Wan has brown robes and then he has green robes at one point, and it's some of that was all over the place.
So but that's on him. He's not the colorist. So
true.
He can only draw Luke with a hard chin. All right, that's the best he can do. So what would you give this one, John?
I liked it. Like I said, it was fun, and it was cool to put that in perspective. So I would probably give it a 7.
A 7? I'm going to give this one a solid 5. I had fun reading it. It was a good time to like see what they thought Star Wars was going to look like before the movie came out and everything. It is the same story as A New Hope. So, if you hate Star Wars or something, then obviously you won't like that. But even me, as not being a big Star Wars fan, I enjoyed reading it again in this condensed version. In a medium I enjoy a lot, Sitting and watching a movie for 2 hours isn't always the most fun experience, especially with it's a thing you aren't going to like that much. So reading a comic, since I read comics all the time, as long as the story's good and it moves, then I'm all good. I can continue. So this was like a better way for me to read or to digest A New Hope. So yeah, I don't know, and I will say this also. This is just the first 6 issues of the ongoing Marvel series that lasted like 107 issues, and I mean there was years in between this or A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. So I want to know what those filler issues adventures.
Oh, let me tell you a little bit about some of those filler issues, because again, they didn't know too much what they could do. They also, as the next movies were coming out and they were deciding what to do, they slowly but surely were giving them like more and more like, okay, you can do this, but you can't go this way with the Force. You can do this, but you can't mention this and this with.
Oh man, that must have been such a bitch. Like having to send scripts to George Lucas or ILM or whoever did it, and then being like, oh, you can't, like a middleman in between you trying to get out a monthly comic that's already on like a hard deadline.
Yeah,
I can only imagine how annoying that was.
So they basically took a lot of adventures off with other weird random characters that are not part of Star Wars at all. Like at one point, Han Solo goes on an adventure with like a giant green talking rabbit.
I think I know that rabbit, or maybe it's not the same one. There's like maybe an indie comic where there's like a giant green talking rabbit.
I don't know if it's the same one, but yeah,
okay.
There's a lot of.
I've seen that character before. Then I don't know.
There's a lot of interesting side fun missions, and then as they get through, they do get to the Empire Strikes Back story, and then they go off again, and then they do Return of the Jedi story.
Do they do the prequels? Is what I want.
No, well, I mean they do, but not in this line. What killed this line actually is so Return of the Jedi comes out, they do that story and they finish, and that's when Marvel's like, oh fuck yeah, like they're done. So like now we can really, because at the time they didn't have plans to do anymore, right?
Right.
George was like, this is we're done with these for a while, because he did have his plan for like 9 movies in general, but he at the time he was like, I'm good. So they were they went to Lucasfilm. They're like, hey, okay, so like what can we do, or we able to do? And they were like, actually, just in case we ever come back to this, and they put like Lucasfilm killed this comic
those
basically by giving them so much, because at that point they were like, you cannot do any stories with Darth Vader, and you can't nobody can know that, even though it's been in the movies, like nobody else can know that Luke and Leia are Darth Vader's kids. You can't do anything with a love story between Luke with a Han and Leia, even though they're in love at the end of Return of the Jedi. You can't do anything with that. You can't do anything with the Force. No characters have any Force powers. You don't know anything about the Force going forward. Like
what the fuck?
They were like, hey, you can write a Star Wars story about nothing that is Star Wars.
Remember that green rabbit? You can write a Star Wars character about or a story about him.
So they basically they were like, okay, well, we're done writing Star Wars comics.
Wow, that makes sense that they killed it so hard.
Yeah. And now that Disney owns Marvel and Star Wars, they are like, oh, we can do whatever we want.
And the world.
Yeah,
they could do all that, but I mean, I don't know if anyone. I mean, I guess they're writing the comics now because Dark Horse lost the license, and it went back to Marvel.
Yeah.
So
and some of them are cool. I've been looking at some of the newer ones.
I have no interest in it. So this was the only Star Wars comic I've ever read, and kind of the only one I care to read.
Well, I'll tell you the other one that I mentioned. The only reason I mentioned it is because I really like the art in it too, and it goes off of like the original.
Right. It would be fun to see the contrast and from the original before George Lucas's wife wrote it to be good, to see what George Lucas wrote.
Because it's like Luke Starkiller, and like there's a Han Solo has a lightsaber too. There's a lot of
Han Hot Rod Solo.
Sounds like you're making the porn version over there.
It's the American Graffiti version, all right?
Oh. There you go. That makes sense.
Does Darth Vader have a pomp? That's what I want to know. Oh man,
the rebels are the greasers, and the socialists are the Imperials.
Yep. Oh man. Yeah. Anyway,
I'd watch that movie.
That's terrible. Would you recommend this for people who like Star Wars a lot?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it was a fun read.
Just go into it knowing what it is. That's the fun part.
Yeah, because I mean, I had to reread part of it because when I was first looking at it, and like I said, part of it was the art originally. I was like, why does this look so different now? And then I was like, oh, okay, it's because they started out before they knew like 3/4 of the movie. So.
Right. Yes. Yeah. But I would recommend this to someone who enjoys Star Wars enough, doesn't hate it or whatever, and wants to try it in a different medium and see what maybe Marvel thought the characters were going to look like with a really good artist, Howard Chaykin, on it. And yeah, so we both recommend it. Like we said, 5. John gives it a 7 because that's his. Just like I gave everything I like a 7, John's going to give Star Wars a 7 or a higher grade.
Yeah, I would feel bad giving Star Wars something too low.
Anything else?
No.
Missing? No. All right.
Just may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, or whatever they say. Always. I don't know. Yeah, if you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can email us at Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word, at gmail.com.
Make sure to subscribe to our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
And on that note, we will see you guys next week. See ya.
Next time.
Bye. Well, folks, hope you enjoyed that episode.
If you did and you'd like to follow us on social media, our Facebook is Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, and our Instagram is @Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more recommendations to add to your weekly pull list.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.